There's been a disturbance in the force and the heat on the hot stove around Kyle Schwarber and the Reds. It's been turned up a little bit. I'm going to tell you why. You should believe this.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. And as always, we are your team today and every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We have followed this team all our lives. We love talking baseball. We love talking Reds baseball. We love talking about those things with you. We have a combined 14 years of experience covering this team in podcast form. On today's show, you heard it there at the top in the cold open, Jeff Carr has drunk the Kool-Aid. He is down in it glass after glass. He is ready to lean in on the Cincinnati Reds signing Kyle Schwarber. So we're going to take a look at what that can mean, what that would mean for the team if it happened. What would the Reds do next? We're going to look at the Reds as an organization and how they can get out of the way of themselves and possibly make this happen, or maybe they won't get out of the way of themselves. And we're going to start today's show with Kyle Schwarber's willingness, possibly, potentially, to actually sign a deal in the Queen City because, as you know, he's a free agent and he is in charge. We're going to get into all of that on today's show that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Jeff. This was not what I thought we were going to be talking about today. We reconvened after the weekend off, and you hit me with this, and I'm a little bit surprised. I know you were on a little speed run to Hocking Hill, and it sounds like you spent the whole weekend drinking the Kool-Aid straight from the tap.
It's interesting, Steve, because I was on the train of this ain't going to happen. Stop thinking about it. Don't worry about it. It'd be fun, but it's just not going to happen. But I've changed my tune a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm all in on this, but I have had a few sips of the Kool-Aid. Let's say that. I'm not drinking from it like it's a fire hose here, but
you had the little Costco taster. Did you just have a Costco taster?
Yeah, a little Costco taster. And discussed, with the Costco person how much the Kool-Aid costs and all this other stuff. So when it comes to Kyle Schwarber and the Cincinnati Reds, we're going to get into the biggest obstacle that is this rumor. And of course, it's the Reds here in a little bit. But I'm going to tell you why I'm starting to believe this a little bit. The biggest thing is, and it's all because of an event that is happening in the city of Middletown, actually at Middletown High School on November 19th. It'll be on 6 p.m. That's a Wednesday night. 6 p.m. Eastern time at Middletown High School. It is called It is called Beyond the Field with Kyle Schwarber. And this is posted on Middletown's website. I will put the link to this post in our description so that you can read about it. But it literally says in the tagline of this event, celebrating his baseball accomplishments and community commitment. It goes into detail a little bit later on, saying that he will be, talking about his career, his life, both on and off the field. He will also share details about his ongoing efforts to give back to the community and explain the vision behind establishing Midway Baseball. And for those who don't know, the Middletown Middies, the Middie is the mascot of Middletown. Don't ask me what that is. Never figured it out. I lived in Monroe and went to Middletown schools for a while. Just don't know what a Middie is. And then he will also be talking about Schwarber's neighborhood here. That's something that he does in Philadelphia and things like that already. But Steve, I don't know why you have an event like this and you are talking about your entanglement with the community without saying, I'm not going anywhere.
It's very interesting. And there are a lot of reasons why this could be happening, Jeff. Kyle Schwarber has remained a part of the Middletown community. He has relatives in the area. Yes. He grew up in the area. He has remained connected to the area, connected to Middletown. So as a free agent with some time on his hands, this may just have been an opportunity for him to come back and give back and connect with his, old alma mater and see his family and do the things. It's perfectly reasonable to assume that's what's going on. But I loved his answer when he was directly asked during the season how would he feel about signing with the Reds. He did not outright say, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But he said, that would be, everybody wants to play for their childhood team. Everybody wants to have that opportunity. So, I could totally see that happening. By the way, I don't know what a MIDI is either, and somebody that's listening does. And could you please get in the comments?
I'm sure someone's going to jump in this.
Could you please get in the comments?
Maybe a family member of mine will say
what it is, because right now I'm picturing one of the dudes from.
Mascot was like a wizard or something, which makes that.
I was thinking Wizard of Oz, but I was thinking like the Munchkins. So I need to know what a MIDI is, because all I can see is Middletown representing the Lollipop Kids, and it's creeping me. So if you know what this thing is, please get in the comment section and help me get that image out of
my friend Bill can help me out on this one.
But you know what, Jeff? I mean, there are guys that want to go home again. And, Kyle Schwarber hasn't come right out and had the press conference and said, I want to go home again, or, intimated beyond being asked directly how he would feel playing for the Cincinnati Reds. He hasn't spoken much on the subject. That'd be a poor negotiation standpoint for him to put himself in. But, the fact that he still loves Middletown. He still cares about Middletown. He still is giving back to Middletown and doing things to make Middletown better and help the youth of the area and all these things. He loves this area. So I'll tell you this. Those things would get the Reds a conversation. I don't know that it would get a deal done, but those things would definitely get the Reds a conversation. And the hardest part sometimes when you're a small market team is getting in the room, getting your foot in the door. And I think the Reds have an opportunity to do that, because clearly Kyle Schwarber loves this area.
I would be curious too, because there's another factor of this that follows along with this announcement. Like, this announcement was not made yesterday. I think I saw it the first time that I saw, updated October 30th. So it was just before Halloween that this announcement was made. I find it intriguing that there were no beat reporters that mentioned this. Mm-hmm. And we know how the Reds operate. The Reds love to keep things close to the chest. They don't leak anything. And Steve, there's a operation initiative that the Empire does whenever they get ready to bombard a planet with their Starfleet, and it's where they remove all of their personnel off the planet. I think that the Reds are a little bit like this too, in that they remove all coverage from an event before they make an announcement of it. And I'm not saying they removed coverage from this particular Kyle Schwarber event. I'm saying nobody's talking about it right now. I've not heard anybody mention this. And I've not heard any updates on Kyle Schwarber rumors. I've heard a lot of radio silence, and I think that there is something big happening.
There's an old adage that goes, silence is deafening. And you might be right. And the other, if we're just throwing them out there, where there's smoke, there's fire. There seems to be a little bit of smoke around this. And you're right. It is peculiar that nobody is covering this from a local Cincinnati sports media standpoint. And I'm a little surprised by it. And
it's possible that it's still a week and a half away, and that's why we haven't heard much about it. But I will say this too, like on top of that, if we start hearing John Heyman, John Morosi, if we start hearing Bob Nightingale tweeting about interest here, interest there, possible offer here, possible offer there for Kyle Schwarber between now and November 19th, I'm going to feel real good about what Kyle Schwarber is going to have to say on November 19th. I'll just say that.
No, I agree. And for me, this would be something completely out of character. This would be something completely different than what they've done in the past. And you kind of hit the nail on the head when we set up how we were going to talk about this. And that is, can the Cincinnati Reds get out of their own way and operate differently to get a deal done? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks and so many different things in between. I love to pick my favorite players and put together parlays, whether it be the points scored, the assists, the rebounds, all of the above. Quite frankly, if you're putting anything on Victor Wembanyama, you can pretty much pick everything with Victor Wembanyama. He's going crazy for the Spurs right now. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can enjoy the action, even when it comes to the NFL and college football and college basketball as well. So many different ways to have fun over on FanDuel. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine and making us your first listen. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate all of you for being a part of the show. If you haven't done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, because we're going to be with you all throughout the offseason, talking to you about everything that's going on the hot stove, what you can trust, what you can shove to the curb, and all of the in-between. And like this Kyle Schwarber rumor in the hot stove and all the warmth that are coming off the burners on the hot stove on this one, I still think that there's something to this. The biggest problem is the Reds. The biggest problem is Nick Krall. The biggest problem is Bob and Phil Castellini and the ownership group. This is a very interesting thing. And I say that separately. I think everybody likes to group. I see a lot of fans that like to group Nick Krall in with Bob and Phil. Like, Nick Krall gets his marching orders from Bob and Phil, and then he goes and does the thing. It's not as if Bob and Phil are telling him what exactly to do. They give him a budget. He stays within the budget. That's the first part of this. How does the budget work with this? Because we have seen some options that have been declined and all this other stuff. There's still some other moves that need to be made before you can really financially say, yeah, the Reds can do a move like this. But that's the first part. The other part of this is, how gun shy is Nick Krall for the big free agent signing? But let's start with that financial piece of this here, Steve, because we talked a little bit about this last week, where it was like, okay, if they decline all the options, which they did, they saved something like $20 million or something like that. What they would have had to pay had they picked up everybody's option. But instead they paid off $2.25 million in buyouts. Now, obviously, that gets added on to the Nick Martinez bit of, saving the whole $21 million. But the Nick Martinez money is basically going to be spent through arbitration. So you've opened up maybe the fact that there's $20 to $25 million available to spend right now. You're going to have to do better than that, because that's not going to get Kyle Schwarber here.
No, it's not. And there's a lot of pieces to this. I think if we were talking about the Reds going out and signing Kyle Schwarber for a year, the money's there. They could get that done. They could get a one-year deal done. The problem is that the Castellinis give Nick Krall a budget on a yearly basis. We hear about it, right? The budget's going up a little. The budget's going down a little. The budget's going to stay relatively the same. These are the things we hear each year. They reevaluate on a yearly basis. If Nick Krall is going to go out and sign a multi-year deal, which this would have to be, it's going to have buy-in from the ownership group. Separate group. We've talked about the fact that this ownership group, they set a budget and they turn Nick Krall loose, but he can't go multiple years. We've talked about the fact that Nick Krall, if you were to ask the Castellinis what kind of job Nick Krall does, they're going to give him an A ++ rating, gold star, great job, Nick, because he's been doing exactly what they've been saying. So all that being said, Jeff, could they realistically sign Kyle Schwarber? I think so. You're probably looking at a deal somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 years, $150 million. The Reds could do that. They could afford that. There's a couple things, though. The CBA. I think that is the biggest problem, because what the Castellini group is looking at, Jeff, is a looming lockout, a looming strike, a looming work stoppage. And we all saw what happened in baseball after that happened the last time. Attendance was down, numbers were down, money was down, ownership lost out on broadcasting revenue. It went on and on and on. The only thing that really rebounded that was Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa going on the home run chase. That brought people back to the ballpark. That brought people back to the television. So you can't rely on something like that happening. So there is a real concern that baseball is going to take a hit during this next CBA negotiation. And I think that's why we've seen the Reds do a pretty remarkable job of having the finances structured that when you get into the 2027 season, they're okay. There's not a lot of guaranteed money that they're going to have to worry about. So I think that's probably the single biggest piece that would keep the Castellinis from leading into this, because it really would change the narrative around here a little bit, Jeff. If they just did something a little different and you had Bob and Nick Krall with Kyle Schwarber holding that jersey down at Great American Ballpark in a press conference that would be covered by all of the national outlets, that would be a narrative changer. So if this were happening at any other time, not 1 year prior to the CBA expiring, it would be a no-brainer for me. But that's the piece that gives me pause.
And I think that's the problem too, is just going back to the Reds of it all. Like, it feels like there is this understanding. I wouldn't say that it's a hard and fast, like, yes, this is what it is, but like, there's an understanding that if the Reds were to make a real push here, that Kyle Schwarber would have interest. Kyle Schwarber would want to play for his hometown team. I say that in air quotes because Middletown and Cincinnati, it's the closest to his hometown. But his home area team. And then he could be close to his family, and his family could be close to, his kids and his wife and all this other stuff. He has a couple of kids. There's a lot of like off the field stuff that would really push this forward. So that's the big part for me, is can the Reds bring themselves to the table here and make a competitive offer? Because I think there's a lot of Reds fans out there that are just wondering, like, yeah, sure, they could give him a call and be like that guy on the State Farm commercial where he's like, I got you $1. Oh, you almost had it. Got to be quicker than that. And that's what people are worried about when it comes to a negotiation like this, where it seems like there could be easy mutual interest if the Reds made an effort. And then you add in the equation Nick Krall. Because consider what Nick Krall has been a part of here while he's been the grand poobah of the front office. He signed Jeimer Candelario, and he's still paying Jeimer Candelario. Mm-hmm. Jeimer Candelario is not going to touch the field for the Reds for the next couple of years, and yet he's still going to draw a check from them. And then he was also the fact that he was the general manager underneath Dick Williams whenever they signed Moustakas and Nick Castellanos, who, albeit Nick Castellanos had a great second year of his contract, but the opt-out, he was done. And Mike Moustakas, we know what happened there. So there's been a lot of big moves for the Reds, relatively speaking. To the rest of the league isn't that big, but for the Reds, they've been big moves and they've all missed. And so there's got to be this question of, can Nick Krall bring himself to actually make this move?
Now, you're spot on with the analysis of the Jeimer Candelario deal and what the impacts of that could be here. I'm giving Nick Krall a pass on all the other things that you said. When he was operating under Dick Williams, that was Dick Williams' baby. Dick Williams was driving that ship. He was running end arounds on ownership to get more money into the budget. Dick Williams was not messing around. And, some of it worked and some of it didn't. But I don't attribute any of that to Nick Krall. Just like the things that are happening now, Brad Mader doesn't have anything really.
Well, maybe not even so much blame, but like Nick Krall saw what Dick Williams had to deal with based on the moves that he made that didn't work.
And I would be reluctant to think that he's even gun shy about that. I really think it's about continuing to operate in a way that he knows fulfills his job requirements, his job description as it was given to him by Phil Castellini and Bob Castellini. And that doesn't include going out and signing blockbuster deals. But I think there's a narrow sliver of a window here that the Reds could do something different. I thought they were done with $100 million contracts after Joey Votto. I thought they were done with, those kind of things. But if what we're seeing out there floating around on the interwebs is true, and that is that Kyle Schwarber is looking for something in the neighborhood of 5 years, that would make him what did you tell me during prep? 37 years old?
Right. He is currently 32 years old.
He'd be 37 years old. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a 5-year deal at $150 million to get a guy into Great American Ballpark. He could hit 60 home runs at GABP the way that he's been swinging the bat over the last couple of years. So I don't know that this is the gamble that these other players were, Jeff. This is not the Mike Moustakas gamble. This is not the Jeimer Candelario gamble. This is going out and getting a bona fide. They hit 45 home runs last year. Was that his total? 45, 48? I don't have his stat sheet in front of me. Sorry.
56.
56. See, I'm way off. 56 home runs.
Beautiful
he could hit
number.
70.
Beautiful number.
He could hit 70 home runs at GABP. It's not out of the realm of possibility that he could put just on an offensive display that kept that ballpark full 90% of the season. So it's a different kind of risk, because he's going to be risking. He's going to be risking the one thing the Reds don't have a lot of, and that is resources. That's the risk. That's the problem, because Kyle Schwarber is going to perform. But what that leaves you with the problem is, what do you do next? What is the next thing? What is move B, Jeff? And we're going to talk about that coming up next. The NFL season is in full swing. And honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans cheering your team on. Hey, the Bengals had a bye this week, and still the defense managed to give up 40 points. You figure that one out. But that's neither here nor there. If you want to get in on the action, get on Game Time today. Just download that Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's already greatly discounted tickets. If you've never been to the venue that the event is in, you can go and see a view right from your seat. All-in pricing. There are no surprises. The price you see is the price you pay. Jeff and I use this thing all the time. We use it for football. We use it for baseball. We head down to the Dora, grab a drink, grab some food, grab our tickets right before first pitch, head into the ballpark. Game Time has never done us wrong. Again, if you want the best deals on the sporting event you want to see, download the Game Time app today, create that account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, guess what? We are on every single podcasting app that's out there, I think. And that's one of the reasons why Locked On is now the #1 sports podcasting network. And we thank you, the everydayers, for helping make that happen. We're on every single audio format out there. Take us with you on the road today. All right, Jeff, I set you up with a question there as we ended the last segment, because I think the Reds can sign Kyle Schwarber, but it's going to take all of the eggs. You can talk about putting all of your eggs in one basket. Kyle Schwarber would be the basket. The question is, could there be a move B? Would there be anything left to address this bullpen and get an arm for the A group? Would there be anything left to talk to Miguel Andujar and get yourself a left fielder that you can stick out there? Because Kyle Schwarber ain't playing the out. He's going to be the DH. So would there be enough money left to do the other things? Or look at us. We signed Joey Votto and didn't do anything to help him. Look at us. We signed Kyle Schwarber and didn't do anything to help him.
Right. It feels like there would be a little bit of that worry, right? Like if you go get Kyle Schwarber, it's easy for you to say, all right, we did the thing everybody wanted, so now we're going to go win. It's like you have more moves than that. And so you would need to do a couple of different things. First, would there
be like a mission accomplished banner hanging behind the podium at Great American?
We were talking about a lot of, oh my gosh. Yeah, Nick Krall is going to get up on the mic and go, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And that's what that's going to be. We were talking about a whole bunch of sarcastic banners all year long. That would be a heck of a banner. But no, like I feel like before you even make this move, you do have to trade like Brady Singer, make sure that money's not on arbitration there. And most likely that's a trade for prospects, because you're really trying to use all of that money, or if not 99% of it. And so you're really not trying to trade Brady Singer for a major leaguer.
Right. Caveat to that is it would have to be a major leaguer that's under team control on their rookie deal, which Brady Singer is probably not going to bring you in a return.
Right. So it's probably end up going to be a minor leaguers or something like that. But you would have to do that to free up enough money to get Kyle Schwarber, and then free up enough money to go get some semblance of an answer to the other questions. Because like you said, Kyle Schwarber doesn't answer all the questions. So answering some of the other questions, you begin with, you bring back Miguel Andujar, and you either platoon him in left field, or you look at his career and you go, does he need to platoon in left field? I mean, he could be a really good platoon guy for a really good right-handed hitter against left-handed pitching, left-handed hitter against right-handed pitching. But you know what? It's not like the Reds are flush with those guys right
No.
now. I mean,
And-
you could
and
do
you-
Will Benson and Miguel Andujar.
Yeah,
but
and you spun me around on this last week when we really took a good look at Miguel Andujar's numbers. I would be okay with him being the everyday left fielder after we looked at his career splits.
yeah, like just so everyone is on the same page with us here, in case you're not an everydayer that saw that episode, his career platoon splits, and I'll just look at OPS. OPS against lefties for his career is 803 or 807. So he has a 475 slugging against left-handed pitching for his career. For his career against right-handed pitching, it dips down a little bit, but not much. His OPS is 734. The big difference isn't on base. His slugging is still 427. That's still one of the best hitters on last year's lineup. And so if you could just get that guy, I'm not sure exactly what it would cost to sign him, but he could be a reasonable plan B or a reasonable second move outside of Kyle Schwarber.
And I would be good with that. And I would consider the offense to be significantly upgraded. But that still leaves the pitching. That still leaves the pitching problem on top of that. I mean, I'm sure if you get those two moves, if they were to sign Schwarber and bring back Miguel Andujar, I'm concerned maybe you and I are pitching in the A group for the Reds in 2026. I mean, you can take the 8th inning one day, I'll take the 9th, and we can flip the next day. It'll be great.
And then Keegan Thompson is the closer. Yeah. No, I think that it's really tough because that's one where I would almost be okay saying, you know what? Let's see what our system has. I would like to sign another guy, but if you're telling me that you shored up the middle of the lineup of Kyle Schwarber and you brought back Miguel Andujar on likely what would be a 1+1 type of deal, like 1 year deal plus 1 year club option type of thing, then I think I would kind of be okay with let's roll the dice with whoever we have out in the bullpen.
This is a very interesting talking point, Jeff. This is a very interesting scenario. Now we have to wait and see. We have to see if the national guys start talking about this, because I think you're right. If the national guys start talking about Kyle Schwarber having multiple things going on, I think that will be last ditch efforts from other teams to try and lure him away, and by his representation to try and fish for a better offer than what the Reds are giving to maybe kind of sweeten the pot someplace else. We've seen that happen before.
Which would mean it be rumors of, oh, he's going to New York, oh, he's going to Boston, or things like that. It wouldn't be, oh, rumors are he's going to Cincinnati. They say that to get other teams to pony up.
And also leaking that he's in serious talks with the Reds to maybe push the Phillies to go all in with whatever it is that they were going to do, right? So, these agents have their little strategies. This one's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm really looking forward to how this plays out, how this moves forward. Because there are times we talk about free agents. We saw this when Francisco Lindor was a free agent. We saw this when, other big names hit the market. We're like, could it happen? Can you squint and see a scenario where that guy would come to Cincinnati? And really, it's not very realistic. But with this one, with a guy that has a connection to the area and a connection to the city, and I know Middletown's not Cincinnati, but the area is the area. And Kyle Schwarber has a big connection to the area. The Reds, I think, have a unique opportunity to really have a shot at this if, as you say, they get out of their own way.
It's weird to even allow myself to think about it, because I will say part of this was, back during the All-Star break, whenever there were, questions about this and somebody brought it up at the All-Star game, would you consider going to Cincinnati and all this other stuff? I'm like, that's fun. I'm sure he's going to give the typical player answer of, yeah, sure. If it ever happened, it happened. I'd be happy about that. And he did. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then people tried to run with it and say, oh, he's coming here this offseason. And I know back then I was like, let's pump the brakes on this. But the more that we see these little bits of things, I'm really starting to believe. I told you this, and I'll tell everybody this. Like, where I'm at right now, the believe meter is a little bit past the middle, a little bit more toward all the way, but it's not like amazingly far past the middle. It's like 55%, I'd say. And so right now I'm like, okay, I still got to see it. I still got to see it to believe it before I'm going to go all in on this thing. But it's a lot of fun to think about. Trust me though, Steve, I would rather the Reds just did what we were talking about and how crazy the rest of the other moves would have to be to fill out the questions that they have on their list right now than what they did last offseason and the offseason before that.
100%. And that is where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen each and every day. Again, you are a big part of why the Locked On Podcast Network is now the #1 sports podcast network. We thank you so much. Now that you've listened to us, go check out our buddy Sully over on the Locked On MLB feed. He's bringing you a national perspective from all around the league all year long. He is a very fun listen each and every day. Go check him out. Until next time, we will be gathering up the news, the notes, the rumors, and the reports to keep you locked on Reds every single day. I got to know what a midi is. It sounds like a happy hour beer or like a single cigarette purchase. I don't know what it is. I need to know. I need to know what this is.
I honestly think it's Ian Jabot's pitch whenever he is a closer on opening day.
Oh, Middletown's going to be mad at you.